everyone for coming. I see folks here representing, I believe, every one of our libraries, all of our locations. Perfect. So I want to note that this session is being recorded and will be available to all staff here shortly. So please spread the word if you feel like there's other staff who want to see this content. That would be helpful.
It's going to be recorded?
Where will we post it? That's a good question. I'm not sure if we're able to post videos to the portal yet or not. I don't think that's something we've done yet, but we'll get this figured out and we'll communicate that probably within the next couple of weeks. So the topic today is responding to gang activity, a discussion with Detective Shelly Taylor. Detective Taylor is the crime prevention officer with the Pueblo Police Department, and she has been helping us respond quickly to some of the unwanted behaviors that have been occurring primarily here at the Rawlings Library. And as we were talking over the past couple of weeks, since doing a couple of things, we've really seen a decline in those types of behaviors. So I think we're on top of it right now, but this is one of these things that the cycle keeps coming back. So it's good to be aware of what to look for and how to respond. And so thank you for being here. I expect that this discussion will last 45 minutes, 60 minutes or so is kind of what I'm thinking. We've got until 3. And Detective Taylor, could you please begin just by telling us a little bit about your role in the police department?
Like you said, my name is Officer Shelly Taylor. I am currently the crime prevention officer in our community services division. That puts me in charge of a few things. Neighborhood watch. I get those groups started within the city, kind of keep that organized up and running. I am one of the public information officers. Every now and then you'll see me on the news. We also run the Facebook page. If you follow us by Facebook, everything that we put out is done either by myself or my sergeant. Also our volunteer program I run, so I have a lot of the volunteers who do work internally and also externally, whether it be writing handicap parking enforcement citations. I just had a meeting with another business who's having some issues with some of the homeless sleeping in what is a pretty nice park in their little area. So I have volunteers that are aware of that and go through there nightly, contact our law enforcement folks to have them trespass from there. So we're using our resources to the best of our abilities. I have been with the police department going on 15 years and have quite a background as a detective in property crimes, in our homicide unit, on patrol, you name it. So that's why they call me to do all these talks. Now this one I have labeled as panhandling, and that covers the loitering part. Now we talked a little bit about loitering and how to deal with that, because obviously you guys are a library and you're going to have people out here loitering. Our officers are not going to come and run somebody off that's sitting on your benches reading a book or the paper or whatever. We're talking about people who are up to no good, that are causing the legitimate folks that come here to be scared to come here, and then you don't see those folks anymore, and we don't want that. We want those who are interested in coming here for legitimate purposes to feel safe in doing so. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I want to engage you guys, see maybe what your experiences are here so that we can address those specifically. But we'll talk a little bit about whether it be, do you guys see panhandlers here? Because I know Posada just moved in over here, so I have heard an increase in that issue from our local businesses. I've given this presentation to our local small business association, and they said since Posada moved in over here, they've had a huge increase of panhandling in this business area. Have you guys seen that? Slightly?
Oh, yeah.
If you're looking for it, you notice it more?
Yes.
Okay. If we don't address it, they will continue to come back because it's fruitful. I normally go out and I make my rounds once a day, and most of the people that you see out panhandling are not homeless. And that's a misconception that a lot of people have. A lot of our homeless know where our facilities are, and they will go to the soup kitchen and they will get their daily meals. They know where they can get clothing, they know where they can stay, and you don't see them panhandling as much. Sometimes they'll panhandle just long enough to get their alcohol and then go back to camp or wherever they're staying. These people that you see out on Highway 47 and I-25 and locations like that, most often you'll see that they're dressed fairly nice. Some of them I've put in here because there are locals. And if anybody knows these folks, it's law enforcement. The blonde gal, Ellen, has a nice place in Pueblo West. She drives a very nice truck every time I run her off. We have people that are very capable of going and working, but they are out there kind of playing up on the hardworking folks because it's easy. They'll brag to us that they average about $40 an hour. And there's no doubt, you know, when I come in contact with them, they'll show me how much they made. It's incredible. So we have kind of taken the stance on this zero tolerance because we've seen an increase in aggressiveness. So for say, let's see, 7th and Grand, 8th and Grand, 7-Eleven there. They have my number and they call me every time they have an issue, and they constantly have issues because those folks sometimes are coming from east to west and pass right by there on their way to the soup kitchen. Now, normally our folks that go to the soup kitchen are the ones who just want to panhandle like at 7-Eleven long enough that when they're done at the soup kitchen they can go to the liquor store right there on that corner, get their alcohol and head back to camp. However, we've seen an increase in folks that are threatening. They're threatening not only customers but staff that work there, the employees, because they've told them that they've seen an increase in theft, so they won't allow them in the stores. One of the gals got her tires slashed, and a gentleman called me and said, I'll never go there again. They're losing business because this guy came and kicked my door. So we are zero tolerance on this right now. I'm working closely with Judge Martinez to let him know all of the complaints that I've been receiving from the community. A lot of these are businesses. They pay taxes. We need to take care of our local businesses and our local institutions that allow people to come here like this. So we had a 29-year-old gentleman, Raymond Rodriguez, who had a place to stay. He had food stamps, but he told me, he goes, it's easy money. I'm not going to go work for somebody when I can stand out and make, you know, $100 in a couple hours. I'm just not going to go work for somebody else. And he told me that after I found him 2 potential jobs. Went out of my way to make sure he got work and he wouldn't apply. So when I made that clear to the judge told him, if you don't want to work for a paycheck, you can work for me for free, and gave him 200 hours community service. He didn't do that, so a warrant was issued. I had one of my volunteers who was with me one time when Raymond ran for me. He recognizes me, he takes off. He said, you know, he's up here at 50 Bypass and Hudson, and he's panhandling, and that's one of the scariest places right there. This thing they stand on isn't very wide, if any of you are familiar with that area. So I went up, he immediately saw me, tucked his sign in his shirt and took off running. I eventually caught him, brought him to court, and the judge put him in jail for 100 days. So that's unheard of in municipal court, but the judge, I think, is on our side when it comes to this. Our business people, our community folks, they need to feel safe going to our local businesses. And we're trying our best to provide work for the folks who want to work. We just having a difficult time finding them. So if you've seen an increase in the loitering here, you need to really be talking with the community that's coming in. If they are telling you that they don't feel safe coming here, we need to address this immediately. Those people need to feel safe coming here and using this facility. So if you have somebody outside that's approaching these folks, and that's intimidating to most folks, not everybody has the personality to say, don't ask me, I don't have money for you, or whatever. They're intimidated. Sometimes that intimidation causes them to open their wallet. I tell them I live off credit cards, I never have cash. We had a gentleman down on the river that opened up his wallet after the gentleman asked him for $1. Another guy came out of the trees, they beat him up and took his whole wallet. We don't want that happening, and the best way to do that is to educate folks. And if you do see people giving them money, you need to explain to them that there's facilities inside our city that are willing to help these folks with food and clothing and other necessities. But if we're giving them that money directly, most often we see that that's going to drugs and alcohol, and that's not going to ever help the long-term solution. So if those folks do want to help, encourage them to give to Posada or Catholic Charities or places like that within the city that can help these folks with the necessities. If they continue to find that it's a good place to make money out here, this is where they will remain. So education is going to be huge, especially with Posada being right here, because now this business area has become, I mean, I get calls daily. So We have 3 things at this point that we can charge them with, and that's loitering. The law, our municipal code is on the back of this page, and it looks like for some reason the top on mine it got cut off. I don't know if it's because I made it bigger. But if you can see Mr. Mondragon, I have him, every time I get him, I have him stand next to the sign so that when I take this to court, there's 2 signs and it has our city ordinance 11-1-202. It says no loitering enforced by PPD. Jerry knows this is not a place to loiter. Jerry's been trespassed from this place. He's been trespassed from multiple places within the city here. And so if that's the case, if Jerry's already trespassed from here, then you guys have a picture of Jerry. He's also trespassed from the church on Grand. This is what he does, and he's starting to intimidate folks. People are coming out of church, he's standing behind their vehicles, won't move until they get out. That's dangerous. Because if they do get out, you know, so far we haven't seen him attack anybody, but if he's not going to move until you give him money, that's not a good thing. So what we can charge them with is the loitering. What we would like to see to help us enforce that. Now we can still enforce loitering based on your statement to us, how long they've been here. Yes?
So if I could describe our process right
Okay.
now, and let me know if this is the right thing to do, then maybe we can move on to the next topic.
Okay.
But when it comes to panhandling, I think we do see it. Probably here at the front door, you see it, hear customers talking about it more than other places. Our first step is to go and let them know that they need to stop doing that. And then if we hear more comments, or we keep an eye on them, let our security officers know if you've had to provide that feedback to a customer, and we'll keep a closer eye on them. The second time, we ask them to leave for the rest of the day, and then if we continue to have that problem with that individual, we would suspend them usually for a month if they're talking with us,
Okay.
But if they're denying it and that type of thing, we kind of have a 1 to 6 month window.
Okay.
But it's kind of that 1, 2, 3 step type of a process. Is there a point in the process where you would like us to call you?
First, I would say if that's going to be your process, document it. This person, make sure you get their name and everything. A lot of our stores have a form that they fill out and they have that person sign it, saying on this date and time, I was warned not to loiter on this property. They sign it. That way, if you decide to call us on the next one, and I'll be honest with you, I would give more than a month, because these folks, first off, they're not going to stay away for a month if they find it fruitful out here. And it's kind of like a child. You can only warn them so many times, and then you have to take action, and they have to be found responsible for their behavior. But I document that. If you come up with a form, then give us a copy. If we come and we cite them for loitering, we can show in court that they were warned and they signed it, they were aware of it, and it makes it that much easier. Walmart does that for us. Some other larger businesses have those forms. So that shows that you properly identified them, they signed the form, they knew that they were trespassed from this location. I guess what I would say, the only thing I would say is if they're not here legitimately and they don't use the facility for anything other than to try and panhandle, then what is the point of just telling them you're kind of grounded for a month? I would say if they don't use your facility, then trespass them. Okay. It's a Walmart lifetime trespasses people who steal from them. That way, if they catch them in the store again, they're not only, we not only get them probably for shoplifting again, but for the trespass charge as well. So if they're not here legitimately, then there's no sense in cutting them any slack, I guess you could say. If they're going to come back in a month and start up that same behavior, then what's the point of, letting them know. So, but that's totally up to you and however you decide to handle that policy. But obviously, I would say if you've trespassed them and they still come back, that's when you should call us and go ahead and say, they've already been trespassed, they continue to loiter, can you please cite them? And we would do that.
Okay.
Correct.
Any comments from staff about what you've seen or experienced with panhandling, or questions about that?
I'm thinking of one person in particular that we've had to confront a number of times for panhandling, and that person also is a regular customer. And so I think that's a very gray area for us, and asking them not to come back permanently. I think we kind of have to do it on a case-by-case basis.
Is it at this branch? Okay. What I would say to that is, have your other customers complained to you, or the other people that come in complain to you about that? So you kind of have to weigh that.
Right.
I mean, just because that person comes in and reads a book doesn't make what they're doing outside to your other customers okay. So that needs to be brought to their attention. There's people complaining. You're welcome to come in and use our facilities, but if we catch you panhandling again, you're going to be trespassed. That way they're aware of it, and there's no surprises when that happens again and they're trespassed. And then they don't get to come on the property. And I know probably from your point of view that's hard to do because this is a public facility, but you've laid the guidelines out, you've made them aware of that, and then if they violate that, we have something to work with. Because you really have to think of those other people who are coming here and intimidated by that process.
And if we don't take some action, suspend their library privileges for some amount of time, then what we're telling them is it's okay.
Right.
Or what we're doing is we're actually begging them to stop. And that's not what we should be doing.
Enabling them,
Yeah,
Right.
I also have seen one. He comes in and he sits inside and plays the guitar. And so people are like, oh, I want to give him money. You know, he's playing, it sounds good, and, you know, or he'll play outside right on this area. And this one lady was going to give him money, and I told him, nope. This is the minute you give him money, he's panhandling, and he's going to have to leave the premises. I was like, you can listen to the music if you want, whatever. I said, but as soon as you start giving him money, he's out of here, I told her. So she didn't. So.
Yeah, and I think maybe I know who you're talking about. And, you know, when people are playing music, is depending on the volume, but otherwise I've said I kind of like the people expressing their creativity, but the line I drew in the sand was I don't want to see your hat on the table, right? I don't want to see a cup out there. You can't be asking for money. But I think that you're right. Even when people aren't asking with their hat or however, that sometimes people do still throw tips.
Well, and probably a better place for that might be down on the Riverwalk, where people have the ability to avoid that if they want. You know, it's kind of hard when you're coming in, and that's a little bit different than the folks who have the sign that say, you know, trying to get home, and they've been doing that since I came on this department. So, yes.
I was just going to say, panhandling also includes other things. Asking for cigarettes, asking for rides, asking for certain favors and things. It does.
Well, that doesn't fall under our statute, but it doesn't, I mean, anybody can come up and ask for a cigarette, but if it's intimidating to your folks, then you need to address that.
Right, and that's where it becomes.
Right.
They sit up there and they'll ask one person, they'll ask 10 people.
Right. And, you know, technically that person, if they felt like trying to file harassment charges, could, but it doesn't fall under the panhandling, unfortunately. So, you know, anybody in public can walk up and say, hey, can I bum a cigarette or whatever, and we're not going to cite them for that. But if it's causing problems at your business, I would certainly be willing to come and talk to them. If you talk to them and it doesn't work, then your option is to trespass them. If you know, and that's the good thing about having a facility like this is you're bothering other people. They've brought that to our attention. If I see you do it again, you're going to be trespassed. So if you enjoy coming to our library, then you need to probably find a way to get what you're asking for without coming and doing it here. Okay.
Yeah, and I would fully support, even though it may not fall under panhandling, it's something that we don't want around our facilities either. So I would want us to follow it the same way.
And once again, that form would be handy because it would say, on this date and time, you were talked about. You know, you were talked to about this situation. We caught you doing it again today. You're now trespassed, and have them sign it. So the trespassing form is huge for us because it is evidence that they've already been talked to. Yep, document. I know that we had some gang stuff that they were talking about. I have since driven by several times. I'm thinking maybe that stuff's happening after I'm off because I don't see any gang activity when I come through. I actually came even and sat over in this parking lot just watching, but yeah, you don't see me. I'm kind of. But I do come through. I've talked to other officers who said they've come through. The good thing about this line of communication is that I can send out an email to all of our officers, and that's 4 watches. If we don't know of the problem, we can't fix it. So I've explained to them that you guys are seeing some activity that's kind of scaring off other patrons. So we want to make sure that we address that. And like I told him, we don't want them to kind of hang on to this area and say this is our turf. because this is your turf and you need to make sure that other people feel safe coming here. So if you start to see stuff, and I told him, everybody, you know, go with your senses. If you see a group of folks hanging out there and they've got the colored bandanas hanging out of their pockets or over their heads or whatever, and you see them milling around, and then you see another group of guys, call us. Don't wait until something hits the fan. Get us up here so that we can try and interact before something bad happens. I know a lot of people say, well, I'm afraid to call or nothing has happened. At least we can get here and we can show that you guys are paying attention, you've contacted us, we start running those guys, somebody will probably have a warrant, they go to jail, they're going to decide maybe this is not the place to go. And it's sad, but even like Wild West Fest, we got a ton of intel that there was going to be gang fights down there, so we had to saturate that area. Why they decide to wait till we have big family events and decide to fight, I have no idea. But this is a nice area, you want to keep it that way, so if you start seeing people that you think are gangsters that are trying to intimidate people. I know that I watched a video and there was some stuff going on here. What I told him is, have you ever gone to like Lowe's or Home? I don't say Lowe's because I don't get good service at Lowe's. So, but Home Depot, do you have people like come up to you constantly? Can I help you find anything? You finding everything okay?
Not too much.
No? That's the only place I really see that. But there's a reason they do that, guys. It's not necessarily they really want to help you find anything. I hate to say that, but it's because they want you to know that they're there and they're watching you, and this is not a good place to steal. If you have that many people coming up saying, can I help you find something? Have you found everything you need? You're going to be a little hesitant to be sticking stuff in your pocket when you have that much contact. So if you see something going on and you see somebody come in and look like they're looking for someone and not something to do, walk up to them, especially you. Can I help you find something? You look lost. They're going to know now, you've seen them face to face, you've got a good look at them, and you know that their behavior is odd. And when you walk up and say, can I help you find something? All of a sudden they know now that this probably isn't a good place and I'll find this guy later because you've got a good look. But if he's free to mill around and find this person in an attempt to assault somebody, then, and nobody contacts him, then why not? But if he has enough people asking him, can I help you? Then he's probably going to move along and say, oh, I'll catch him later.
That work in the reverse sense that what happened with the guys who were stealing the videos, I was out putting the flag at half-mast and I saw them come in, so I usually greet, you know, hi, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Would that not make them feel more comfortable? You know what I mean? Like,
Not if they're here for the wrong reason. If you've got a guy coming here because he heard that somebody he wants to beat up is here and he's looking all over and he has no contact at all, then he's got free reign of the place. But if he had multiple people say, you know, you look lost, can I help you find something? Are you looking for something in particular? Then there's too many people who now have got a good look at his face, have obviously seen that his behavior is odd and that have made contact with him. Probably going to either wait for him outside, unfortunately, or find him in another location. So,
yeah. I want to reinforce what you said. We are happy to have you and any officer on site. It's a good thing. So I want to talk a little bit more about when you get that feeling in your gut that what's going on here. This person looks like they're casing the joint, you know. Or,
sure.
At what point do we make that phone call? You talked a little bit about a bandana hanging out of the pocket. How much attention should we give that? Is that something that is a big deal?
Yes.
That we should give a lot of.
We call that flying your colors. If somebody's being obvious and they're flying their colors, they're doing that for somebody else's purpose, for their benefit. So that if there's another gang member in here that they recognize that's from a different gang and they're flying their colors, that's a reason to fight. Okay, they're starting a turf war, if you will. So you need to pay attention to that as well. Some things are not as obvious to most people as they are to law enforcement. There's a lot of things that we may recognize that maybe you won't. But the bandanas are huge. You'll see a lot of colors. Sometimes, you know, we see the sagging and bagging, but the blue boxers or the red boxers may indicate a certain gang. The hats. Colorado Rockies hat is a Colorado Rockies hat to us. It's Crips rule to them. So you see a Colorado Rockies hat, that may be dependent on other things, other factors of what they're wearing, may be a Crip gang member. If you have 3 or 4 guys walk in and they're all wearing red, you may have a bunch of Bloods walking around in your library. And they may be looking for something specific. They may have word that there's another gang member here, and they're going to go flaunt their colors and see if they can kind of stir the you-know-what.
So what do we do?
Well, here's the thing. The more information you give dispatch, the better. If you call and say there's a guy in the library who looks like a gangster and we're uncomfortable, that is going to go down here in the priority list. And I'm just being honest with you. We are 17 officers short. That much information will get you a very long response time. If you say, this guy's been in here before, he assaulted somebody, you guys weren't able to catch him before he left, he's flying his colors, he's got a blue bandana hanging out of his pocket. First off, you want to give as much clothing description as you can, because all that goes into our database. The officers can see that on their computer screen while they're en route to the call. He's made multiple rounds through the library. It looks like he's looking for someone. Can you send somebody up to contact this party? Or if you've contacted him and you obtain more information and he tells you, I'm not looking for anything, don't worry about it, and he has some sort of attitude that you can describe to dispatchers, that's helpful as well. Because if he tells you, get out of my face, I'm not looking for a book, there's all those red flags that when added together can make a big difference in our response time. So the more, the better. It just depends. You don't want to probably call if you see 2 guys walking in all red. It's not against the law. But when you add all those factors together, then it might mean something to law enforcement, and we might want to come up and contact those folks.
So first piece of advice is give the best customer service you can.
Yep.
Be visible and be around them.
Yep.
And secondly, be collecting information and make that call if you feel like some red flags are adding up to something.
Right. And dispatch is going to let you know. And don't take offense to that. They may tell you, okay, well, that's not really to the point of a crime. If something else comes up, please don't hesitate to call. Hopefully that's their response. They get a lot of calls. So just be sure that you give them every possible bit of information that's making that hair on the back of your neck stand up.
Just to add real quickly, that specific incident we were talking about where they assaulted the man. Well, first of all, those bangers, they really didn't have a uniform. The only thing that I noticed was their shoes, but I wasn't able to profile them by their uniform because they had lack of uniform. Some gangs do not wear real uniforms or anything, flags, whatever. Here's the deal, is I was able to suspect them and profile them by their actions. Their actions what led me to approach them instead. It had nothing to do with what they were wearing.
Okay, and when you approached them, what happened? What was your conversation?
Okay, well, when I went to approach them, first of all, I seen them from up above. I was on the 3rd floor. I seen them come in the front door. The way they come in the door, the way they were looking, the way they were acting was totally suspect.
Right, they were on a mission.
I called my other officer. I came down. I was just watching them from a distance because, I'm going to give them benefit of the doubt because they weren't flying flags. They weren't obvious gangsters. Okay, so gave them benefit of the doubt. I had the other officer come and meet me down here. I tried to cut him off at the door. I was going to approach him. By the time I come downstairs, they're already beat up, but they saw us and left. But the whole point of the story is you can't always profile them by their uniform because sometimes they don't have a uniform. It's
Well,
their actions. I used his actions.
they all, and I'll just kind of tweak that just a little bit, they all do, but they may not be,
Matching.
well, no, they may not be so prideful. Maybe they know that certain people are looking for them, or they don't want to walk in all wearing their colors, but I assure you under that sweatshirt was some color. I assure you somebody had a bandana or whatever, but they may not, for one reason or another, wanted to make that obvious when they walked in here. Maybe they covered up their colors, but our real gangsters always are flying colors one way or another. Even if you look at cars that are driving by, they'll have a bandana hanging off their mirror. There's just always those things that you pick up on. But had you made it to them and talked to them and approached them before that happened, it's highly likely that they would have taken that somewhere else, because now you've just kind of put a wedge between them and their victim. And if you had,
They knew I was present. I'll tell you.
right, but if you were upstairs and they're downstairs and they have time to get the, right.
Story. By the time I come down to 2 is when I could have approached them, but I gave benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Sure. But there was a
But see, and that's the thing, I'm not saying profile, but something didn't feel right. So if you approach them and say, hey, you guys,
well, they
can I,
divided too. 2 of them
right.
went upstairs, one stayed at the bottom and posted.
And that's a huge red flag.
Oh, yeah, definitely, because he's watching the car.
Right.
The other 2 were
And I know what you're saying, and so you're kind of in that conundrum of, do I call right now? But when they walk through the door, they look like they're on a mission. They're not strolling. They're moving.
Yeah.
They split, and you've got somebody stuck at the door, you know, playing the guy who's the lookout. That's when you call and say, look, I just had 3 guys stroll in. Something's not right here. Do you have an officer available? Can they come up and help me ID these guys?
Great.
You know.
So one of the things I've heard from staff, as we've been talking about this, is, are you sure I should call? I feel like I might be crying wolf here. You know,
You might be,
yeah.
but you don't know. And that's really something. And all I can tell you is try not to be frustrated with us at the same time, because if we get that basic information, we may not get here before those folks leave. Because we are so short, and we do have a huge call volume right now. Every day I leave, there's over 40 calls for service holding. So if there's a bank robbery, obviously we're going to that first. So that's why I talk about the importance of providing really good information, because that may, based on what you tell them, bring that level of priority up. But still, don't hesitate to call. If you don't feel something's right, call us. We'll still put in a call for service. And we may get here after the fact, but at least we can talk to you about what happened, and maybe the officers can push that information out to everybody else. You know, we got here after the fact, but this is what happened, so keep an eye out. So don't hesitate to call. I mean, it doesn't hurt.
There are a few indicators that many of us aren't tuned into. So we know to look for behaviors, and we know the typical signs of a bandana or a particular hat. But can you tell us a few of the other visual indicators that we should notice for different groups that have a presence here in Pueblo?
Well, you know, tattoos are big for us. And I don't know if you really, like when somebody walks in, you may not really, you'll see tattoos, but you don't really look at them. And I always try to really look at them. Sometimes you'll see the 719, which is the area code. Or some people, if you see their tattoos, it's just a regular tattoo. It means something to them. It's not gang related. So if you see the 719 or you see different, and that's the thing, I mean, a gang class is an entirely another class. So the big things are what you already know, the clothing, the hats, the colors, things like that. And those are going to be the big things that stand out. But going through like all the tattoos and all that stuff, we'd have to get Detective Jeffries in here and go over like the major gang stuff. But we have our Bessemer Spruce Locos, our East Side Dukes, our Bloods, our Crips. We do have gang members here, and to be honest, I don't see a lot of gang activity in this area, so it kind of surprised me when we talked that they were even hanging out here, and that's why I kept coming up. I came through here at least once a day since we talked, sometimes twice a day, and wasn't seeing that activity, and it was surprising to me because we normally have our turf wars in parks. You know, they'll go to our parks and have a big battle and then move on or whatever, but we don't normally see it at public places where there's all those witnesses. The more witnesses there are, the easier it is to identify them, and they don't want that. They want to do what they do and move on.
Yeah, I can't say, sorry for jumping ahead. I can't say that over the past 2 weeks we've put some resources towards this, and
Good.
I think pretty quickly we saw those behaviors move on.
Well, and that's the thing. If they notice that you are picking up on the behavior and that you're putting resources toward that, they normally tend to move on because they don't want to be identified. They certainly don't want police contact. So whatever you're doing, if that's working, then keep it up. And then, like I said, I let the officers know what was going on too. So they're still coming through and checking. Yes?
Any suggestions for, like, I'm going to be doing books in the park this summer. So I'll be at Bessemer and Central DeClenso. And anything I need to kind of, you know, be aware, it's only going to be like a few women going out there in the mornings.
Sure. Well,
You know, if I see a group of young guys there, it's best I probably just...
time is a big thing. If you're out there in the morning, we don't normally see a lot of gang activity in the morning. They're snoozing still.
I mean, we've gone out there and seen some, but they, you know, they were just kind of...
Right. And it's
They
summertime.
get there and they leave.
Right. Like I said, it's summertime, so we're going to see a lot more activity. But when you're out there and you've got a bunch of kids and stuff, they do normally have enough respect to keep that kind of stuff away from things like that. And they normally will try, is it First and, I can't even remember the name of that park. But it's kind of off by itself. It's over by the river, and not a lot of people go to this park. So we have a lot of gang activity over there. They bring out their bats and stuff, and they wail on each other, and then they split before we get there. But they normally will not go to a park where there's already people, and I don't say never, but it's rare that they will go to a park where there's already people present and start getting into a gang war. They normally like to do that off where there isn't a bunch of witnesses, because I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff we put out, but oftentimes if we have a shooting that's gang involved, we don't get any cooperation from that gangster even though he's been shot. They will do almost anything not to rat on one another. So as long as they all get together and go to a park, no matter what happens, that's between them. They handle their own. So they're not going to want to go to a park where there's other witnesses, because you guys, you don't have anything to gain by not getting involved and talking to the law enforcement. They know, as gangsters, the code. They're not going to be talking to the police and giving up information. So they would rather do that where there's no other witnesses. But if you see,
like their jump-ins and stuff, if they're getting new recruits to the gangs, and they're
sometimes
having to do some of those things.
sometimes we'll have assaults, but it's normally like one guy or one woman walking home by herself. They don't normally jump out on a group of people. It's like I said, it's normally not a daytime thing. When you're in darkness, car descriptions are terrible, people descriptions are terrible. You get 4 or 5 guys that jump out of a car all in black, beat up a guy walking home with groceries, and get into a dark colored car. We don't have a lot to work with.
Yeah.
But during the day, it's a whole different story. We get a lot better descriptions, obviously. So we do have where people, that's how they're getting jumped in, maybe assaulting a civilian, but it's rare that they would do that in a circumstance like you're talking about, where you're got all these kids here. I mean,
Well, I'm saying right at first we don't.
Right.
You know, it's just a couple of us setting up and doing that. But
anytime there's more than one, I don't see that happening.
Okay.
They like to get people off by themselves, because if they're beating them up, those people aren't looking at their faces and getting a good description. And that's the same thing we have, like with elderly folks who are alone coming from the grocery store. They jerk their purse off their shoulder and they take off. That person is not getting a good look at them because they just got thrown to the ground. So they normally, we don't see where they do that, where somebody's with that person.
Okay.
So we just talk about, if you have 2 or more people, you're less likely to be victimized, because they don't like witnesses. So, but the same thing, I mean, if something doesn't feel right, then you definitely have to call. If you get a group of people that, whether they look like gangsters or they just look intimidating to you, don't hesitate to call us and just say, hey, we're out here at the park. I got a bunch of kids out here. I've got 5 guys approaching us. They're dressed in all black. Whatever they're saying has something to do with it. Can you please send somebody here? But like I said, the more information. If they're saying things that are intimidating, if they're threatening you, that's huge. But if they're just walking through the park and that's all you have, then right. But it's just like I said, it's hard to what if every potential scenario. You just have to go with your gut, and you don't want to wait too long. I mean, if you really don't feel good about it, then you need to call. Okay? Yes.
Sometimes we've had some big guys come in, and then they go to that little center, the snack area, and then they're just loud and talking loud, and I get afraid to go approach them myself because they're big, so I pray for them to go. But,
Does that work?
yeah.
Do they quiet down?
Yeah, but I just don't know, what do you do?
Do you have anybody else that you could call in the library that you think would be able to go approach them and just say, hey, we've got
Yes,
some.
we could.
I mean, if you call somebody and you say, look, these guys are being really loud, could you come tell them? If you don't feel comfortable doing that, sometimes their looks are intimidating, but they might be very open to, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was talking so loud. If that's not the reception you get after asking them to quiet down, and nobody in the bank feels comfortable dealing with that afterwards, then call us. And we'll come and remove them from the facility, if that's what you want done. I mean, if they're not going to abide by the rules that you have set in place for everybody, then they don't need to be here. And normally that's all it takes, is us showing up and going, all you had to do is lower your voice.
Yeah.
But now we're here. So,
That's right. Sometimes all it takes is asking them to change their behavior.
Right.
Sometimes that's all it takes. And if we don't ask them to change their behavior, then we're not really giving them the chance to follow our expectations. But I
Right.
can understand feeling intimidated. I think if you go into a situation, by providing the best service you can and just be polite and ask them to lower their voice, and they do continue, then it's probably time to call in the person in charge.
And sometimes it's just a simple little education. Hey guys, we have this other thing going on over here, a little loud, if you don't mind just toning it down a little bit. Sometimes people are very receptive to that, and it'll be fine. But like I said, if you approach it that way and their response is completely, you know, not going to happen, then feel free to call us. And we can talk to them about the potential for being trespassed from a place they like to apparently come and hang out. So they'll either change their behavior so they can stay here, or they won't, and then you may have to go through with a trespass. So that's kind of up to you guys, and everybody has different policies. Yes?
All right, I want to bring something to everybody's attention. Obviously, there's more of a daily threat lately with gangs and whatnot, and I know this being an officer, I see a lot of stuff. I have a good mouth and I can talk to people, you know. There's some gangsters that are actually 1%. You don't have to be a gangster now. There's people that are going to bring deadly force here, and I realize, even though I have the credentials, I'm a bail enforcement officer on the side, and I do security work too, but I don't have my city credentials to carry the firearm. What about this, guys, and John included? What if we had a non-lethal way to deal with lethal threats? I.e. beanbags, rubber bullets? What would you think about that, ma'am? I want to get
Absolutely not. You never meet lethal with less lethal. No.
Okay, see, that's why
No.
I want
Somebody brings lethal, that's at the point where you say, do what you got to do, please, you know, let them be on their way. You don't try to stop somebody less. Yeah. Yeah, you absolutely don't want to ever meet lethal with less. Because if that doesn't work, and I assure you, I've seen people high on narcotics, beanbag rounds don't work, pepper spray doesn't work, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work, and we're like go-go gadget cops in uniform, and when everything on that belt doesn't work, you're kind of like pucker factor. It's, you know, here we go. So you don't want to take that chance.
Okay, I just
So,
heard that question
yeah.
after, 'cause I didn't know all the.
Yeah.
So would you repeat what you said about whenever you're faced with lethal in this position, what do we do?
You respond and do whatever they tell you to do. If they're here to get money, give them the money, let them get the heck out of here. You don't want to set up a situation, first off, where you have the potential for other customers to be in danger. You want to give them what they're asking for and get them out of here. We also don't want to get it to a position where law enforcement's coming here and now suddenly they can't get out and they're taking people hostage. We'd rather just work with those folks, get them on their way. That's what they want anyway, and then we'll follow up from there. Get the best description you can, any information you can give to us so that officers en route can start looking for that suspect. But we don't want them to stay here, and we don't want them to be approached because we don't know what they have to lose.
So I want to repeat this for everybody, Jacob, because she's exactly right. Remember our active shooter video? Many of you in here, hopefully everyone in here has seen that video. And if you don't recall that, we'll show it again, right, Michael?
Sure.
Is that your
An active shooter,
run, hide, fight video? Okay.
Yeah, we don't, we're not going to confront that. We're going to retreat to safety, and we're going to ensure people's safety. That's our first priority.
Okay.
We're not about trying to face that with some sort of firepower.
Well, right, and I'm obviously smart enough to understand that.
And
But
as long
it's
as
that sometimes you don't have time, you better act and do something or you're gonna get killed.
Well, and if you guys have all seen that video, then if you're in a position where, and I can't think of a circumstance really where somebody would come into a situation like a library and do that. I mean, I can't really wrap my head around the school shootings either, but it does happen. But if you are stuck in a room and they're trying to kick in the door and you've done everything you can to prevent that door from coming open and they get in, then the only thing left is to fight, right? So, but if you can get the heck out of here and get away from the situation, then that's your number one priority. If not, then you hide. If they find you, you fight. And we put that video out. The Sheriff's Department puts that out. We put it out. I can tell you, and it's only my personal opinion, the school thing, I don't agree with that. We've had the same thing happen over and over. Nobody's going to walk in that school, see all the classroom lights off, and think nobody's in school. They know those kids are hiding in a corner somewhere. A lot of our schools these days are built with outside doors. And I've talked to other officers, and it's kind of funny because every one of us has told our kids, don't discuss this with your teacher, don't tell them what you're going to do, you hit that door and you haul butt. Because not only am I in law enforcement, but I'm a hunter. So I know the further away that target is, the harder it's going to be to hit. So I would much rather find 200 kids hiding in a field than dead in a classroom. So the run, for some reason they skipped that run part. I don't know why, but in our schools, I think the teachers are they're caring. They want to, it's like your little ducklings. You want to know where all your kids are. But at that point, get them out of that school and get them out of there. And like I said, that's my opinion. We teach the community that, the run, hide, fight. Why are we not doing that in our schools? But, that's kind of on a side note. But to that, you have to do what you have to do. And normally, if somebody's coming in here with a gun, they're coming in with a purpose, and it may just be to get money. You don't know. But if that's what they want, give them that and get them out of here. Okay? I don't want anybody getting hurt trying to find a guy for 20 bucks, whatever it is. It's not enough in the register to get yourself killed over. Right?
A lot of those threats would come towards me anyways, because I make people happy.
The guy who just said he can talk to people, though?
Yeah, well, there's some people who don't listen. There's
Sure.
that 1% we're talking about again, that just don't give a F, and you know that.
Sure.
Yeah, 1%.
But stooping to their level and engaging in that confrontation.
Oh, I would never do that, but I would defend myself if it was once attacked.
Sure.
Sure, I would never engage in their game, because I know once you've done that, you've lost control.
Yeah. Was there anything else that we haven't covered that we talked about?
I think that we've covered.
I think we did
what I
cover
was
the
expecting.
loitering, the gang stuff.
Any other questions out there?
I kind of have a question for you, to get back to the panhandling thing. You mentioned documentation is a great idea, and it is. Should we, document first offenses using our the things we already use to document people?
Sure,
violating our laws?
absolutely. I always encourage incident reports because
Okay.
that helps us build the case. In one panhandling instance, I'm not sure if it's the one you're referring to or not, for years and years, we just kept asking him to stop. When I got into my seat, after about the third time I heard about this, I said it's time for us to issue a suspension. And a month or so later, he came back and he kind of owned it. And my understanding is that that behavior has stopped with this regular customer. But so
Okay,
I
so try to
encourage.
get names.
I encourage
of
incident
possible-
reports. If you know where our cameras are, and you feel like you're in a zone where we've got camera coverage, you can let me know a time, and we can add that image to that report as well. And that always helps. As you've all been seeing, as we've been posting the list of suspended customers on our intranet, the pictures are helpful because we've got multiple locations, and folks will go to other locations if they've been suspended from one. So it's good to look at that weekly or so. But yeah, I encourage incident reports with as much information.
And anytime you do decide to call us, if you can make that available, that'll help. He talks about building a case. That helps our case as well. It proves that you guys have already had multiple contacts or whatnot, talk to this party, and he's aware of it. So that makes our job easier when we do write a citation. Now, you might find that some people don't really care about being suspended from here. They're still going to keep coming because there's no
Calvin Reeves.
tangible, what are the repercussions of that? Well, I don't get to come here. What are you going to do if I do? But once we write a trespassing ticket and that fine continues to go up each time, when you start dipping in people's pockets, behavior normally tends to change. I guarantee the gentleman doing 100 days in jail for panhandling will probably think twice when he gets out, because he told me when I finally arrested him, what are you gonna do, throw me in jail? Nope, that's up to the judge. And within a 30-minute period, the judge said, welcome. You get 100 days with food in your belly and a roof over your head. So he was freaking out. He thought there's no way he was going to jail for that. Well, multiple times, those build up and the judge has enough.
That's right.
So-
And so it may be the first time for you, Maria, but maybe I
Yeah,
have a
for
couple
other
other
people,
incidents.
it's-
And when I get all of these on my desk at the same time, I do, with some regularity, issue suspensions after the fact. Calling people up or trying to find them based on incident reports that have been turned in. I may make a decision after reading that report that a suspension is necessary.
What do your numbers look like with this kind of stuff that you're talking about, where you're talking to people about possibly suspending them? Are there?
How many people do you think we've suspended since January?
Oh,
Since
3
January?
dozen, 4 dozen.
This has been a pretty heavy year
It
with
really
that.
And are these for the things we're talking about, or what kind of stuff are?
Multiple violations.
Oh, stealing. Are you guys pressing charges on theft? I've never
That's what
been
we're working
sent up here on a,
Yeah.
We have press charges, yeah, we had some DVD stuff, we had games, video games stolen, charges pressed on that.
okay,
But, the types of things that someone might be suspended for here might be a more egregious kind of thing, like, we had a ring of people stealing video, video games.
mm-hmm,
And hundreds and maybe thousands of dollars worth. But there are other kind of things where it's just repeated offenses of behaviors that might not be arrestable kinds of offenses, but repeated behaviors that's not really allowed in the language.
Disruption.
So there is a continuum of stuff. Some that would call for police involvement or,
Mhm.
or courts involvement, and others that we might suspend but not for something that would be considered criminal.
okay. And you're sure that those, whatever you're talking about is not criminal? Because a lot of people, I mean,
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know that.
it might be something as simple as disorderly conduct.
Yep, exactly.
And a citation is technically an arrest in legal standards. So we may not take them to jail, but if you write them a citation and summons them to court, that's technically an arrest. So if they're here causing a disturbance and we need to come write a citation to make that behavior stop, then we can do that.
Oh, great.
You just don't want to keep giving them too much rope, because if they get away with it once, just like a child, they'll continue to behave that way because there were nothing happened to them. Yes?
I apologize for being late, so I don't know if you guys already touched base on this, but then what's the definition of loitering?
And that is in the packet. It's really actually a very easy thing for us to enforce because technically it's remaining idle in one place for a period of time that may impede the flow of either vehicle or foot traffic. And so if they're loitering and they're talking to people and asking for cigarettes and money and just, harassing people per se.
Because that is a city ordinance, right?
Yes. And so that is on the very back page of this handout. And I don't know if there are enough. But like I said, it cut the top of this off. But pretty much remaining idle up on any public street, public highway, public sidewalk, or any public place and engage in any act which obstructs or interferes with the free and uninterrupted use of the property or with any business lawfully conducted in or upon or facing or fronting on any such public street, highway, sidewalk, or building, and prevents the free and uninterrupted ingress, egress, and regress herein. Okay, this is all legal mumbo jumbo, but pretty much what I told you is, and then it says with intent to interfere with or disrupt, different things, whatever it may be here or at a school or whatever. So loitering is pretty generic for us and pretty easy, and that's why a lot of the times with panhandlers, I can write them for loitering. I also, out on the highway, will write them for interfering with traffic, because I swear every time that light turns green, they're stepping out there getting a dollar bill. It holds everybody up, and we've actually seen rear-end collisions because the guy starts to go because he sees the green light, but somebody's handing this guy a dollar bill. So then we have a third one that's called a peddler solicitor's license, where if they're going to, and it's a little harder, the wording in it is a little bit harder for us to get in court. They actually have to specifically be asking for money. So if their sign says single mother, down on her luck or whatever, then we can't get them for not having a peddler solicitor's license while they're soliciting money. So loitering is pretty standard for us to write.
Can I ask,
Would those people who are hanging out on the stairs and kind of like, that people complain about, would that count as loitering?
Yes.
so that's where I'm going. in
Yeah,
regards
the
to,
ones who,
because
because they would talk to each other and curse, and it made people,
they're not
Uncomfortable.
intimidating
But they wouldn't
traffic,
talk to
but they're
other people.
intimidating, and they hang out there, and it's the
Yeah.
same group, they're fully dressed in black. They're always
But it is impeding the flow of traffic if they're doing what she's talking about, if they're cursing and keeping people are not going that way because the behavior is intimidating.
Well, absolutely, and
Yeah.
we get
Yeah.
parents that come in that say, I won't come in the evenings anymore with our kids
Right.
because they're out there. We
That's
have
definitely
security
impeding.
officers that stand out there, and I'm sorry, Jacob, but when the security officer stands there and drinks a Mountain Dew and smokes with them, what is that doing? And I just walked in today, and there's two groups on both sides of the fences.
For the record, she don't mean me.
No, I apologize, because I know it's one of,
No, it's one of our
officer,
officers,
and
that's
it's,
fine, so.
and it, and it's it's frustrating
Sure.
because, you know, I get to hear the customers and I try to encourage them to fill in a comment form so that they can be passed up to administration and let them know, and they don't wanna take the time to, no, I just don't come anymore in the evening.
Right, and you don't want that. You don't want people not coming here for legitimate reasons because of that. So, and I've said it on my off time when I'm standing in the grocery store with my 10-year-old daughter, and the two young kids are cursing in front of me. Excuse me, I've got a 10-year-old there. Do you mind? You know, and if you do, so you just have to be aware of that, and you have to make them aware. Listen, and you can address it nicely at first. And say, listen, your cursing is offensive to other people. We're going to ask you to stop. If you don't, you're going to be asked to leave. And if they don't like that,
Is that an approach that the district could take, though, as approaching them with loitering, that you're loitering, and we don't want this
Yeah,
kind of behavior?
the first thing we need to do is we need to tell them what we expect.
Right.
And let them know that you can't just be standing out here in people's way, cussing. I mean, these are our basic rules of customer conduct, and we need to pass those on and then follow up on that. So if you're hearing comments, especially if they're not gonna, even if they do write a comment on a piece of paper to be sent up to me, let's get that feedback in the system sooner. Many more days out of the week. Right now, we've got people here at 11 a.m. Through close. And so if I hear this comment, we'll immediately act on it, and we'll get somebody out there, because that's a behavior we absolutely need to change. We need to keep the library's reputation as a place that is family friendly and a safe place to be. I'm going to recognize that we're at 3 o'clock here. I want to thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
And for the discussion. And I know that I took some great things away. I hope everyone else did as well. And so thank you for being here.
absolutely.
I
Nope.
appreciate it. Great.
Good luck, guys. Holler at us if you need anything.